Hello, everybody, and welcome to the August 8th, 2022 iteration of the Kubernetes SIG-Windows community meeting. As always, these meetings are recorded and uploaded to YouTube, so be sure to adhere to the CNCF Code of Conduct. And that could be summarized as just be a nice person. So let's get started. First is announcements. I had a couple announcements. If anybody has anything else, feel free to add it. Announcements I had were the 125 test freeze is today around 6 p.m. PST. So if there is anything that we think we can get in for the test freeze, we should try and do so. Feel free to reach out on Slack, and me or any of the other leads can help try and get that merged. Next announcement is the KubeCon North America schedule is now available. I thought I added a link to that, but I didn't. I'll get that added. There's 4 Windows related talks this time. So we've got the maintainer series talk that James submitted all about host process containers got accepted, and Chinchi and Memes talk about the operational readiness got accepted too. So that's great. And there is a customer submitted talk from Relativity about their experience running Windows containers that also got accepted. So that's exciting. It's a lot of talks for Windows. So, and if anybody else, I think I may be attending in person. If anybody else is going to be attending in person, just let me know, and hopefully we can meet up at some point. One other kind of minor announcement is Windows semi-annual channel release 20H2 is now out of support. That's the last semi-annual channel release that I think we've tried to say was supported in Kubernetes. So moving forward, we will only be supporting LTSC releases of Windows Server here. I opened up a couple PRs. I see James celebrating. Yeah, I opened up some PRs to get those removed from all of our prod jobs and everything. And I think we can follow up with some more PRs to remove them from the container images. So that's that. Does anybody have anything else to announce?
Can I get someone to put some thumbs up on an AWS issue that they are out there trying to work on in 2022 AMIs for EKS? They haven't completed them yet, and with said announcements of 20H2 going away, wouldn't mind having those. Can I link it in chat and have some people throw some +1s on it for me?
Yeah, and you might want to reach out to Justin Terry in Slack too. I know he's over in Amazon. He's been I think he said he showed up to the community meetings for a while and then had some conflicts, but I can connect
So
you to
last time I talked to him, I think he was mostly an ECS Fargate guy. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Much control.
You might know who to redirect to, though.
Exactly. It's possible. I should reach out to him. Anyway, I'm linking it here in the chat. Just throw some thumbs up on it so they see that it's something that people care about.
All right, sounds good. Next, if there's any new contributors here, we can give some space to welcome them. If anybody's new here wants to just say hi, say what you're working on, introduce yourself, feel free to do so. No pressure, but you can just unmute yourself and go.
I'm here, everyone. This is Nawaz, just joining into SIG-Windows meeting to understand more about Prow and how that test infra works. So happy to be here.
Yeah, hi Nawaz. We may talk about some of that in a little bit. And if not, I'm happy to go over some of that with you offline. You can reach out and you can sync up.
What, are you going to help us out, Nawaz? This is good.
Oh, I'm here to learn.
Oh, okay, cool. It's interesting though. Were you looking at the SIG-Windows dashboard or just in general, just looking at other dashboards and then?
Just in general.
Oh, wow. Yeah, definitely. Like if you want to start a pairing session up or look at stuff together, start a thread in the SIG-Windows room and one of us will join for sure. We also do like after hours hangouts. We used to do them every week, but then I got lazy and we stopped doing them every week. But if you if you want to do like a hangout after this, I think I can do one for a little bit too.
Oh, cool. Cool.
Yeah, those were usually just if anybody had any topics or wanted to pair on anything. Folks who were available to join could stay. Cool. Well, welcome. And yeah, hopefully we can answer some questions. And if not, feel free to ask whatever questions you have. Okay, anybody else? If not, we can go to the agenda. Pause.
This is me. That's me. So and actually, Nawaz, it looks like you came on a good day because a meme is he's so proactive that he went and he wrote in the notes that he wanted to make a new proud job for operational readiness
I did
test.
that. I
So-
wrote that in the
Oh,
notes.
you did that. Okay. Yeah. That would be great. Yeah, because we're building that new operate. Yeah. Anyways, so maybe we can go after and look at that together. But yeah, so CAPI support is for me. I saw this doc that James you made about CAPI support, and I'm kind of like more and more feeling like long term. It would be cool if we could do something with the CAPI node agent or something that was mutable. I know you're not allowed to say mutable VMs, but I'm just going to say it. Like, I just feel like for Windows, I just feel like moving towards something mutable in the long term feels like something we should talk about. And then I know that we have this Windows machine operator that Arvin works on. And internally, at VMware, we talk about what's the ideal way to install Windows and on Kubernetes. And we do a lot with Image Builder right now. It's not bad. It works real well. I'm just wondering, like, are people thinking about a mutable agent-based approach to bootstrapping Windows, or SSH-based approach, or machine operator type approach? And what's the status of that support proposal also? But even though it's not directly related,
Yeah, I mean, so I just give a little background on this. It was a couple of years ago, there was no Windows support, and so I kind of went and looked at various ways to bootstrap everything and get it working. And I think I listed a few different options. We went with, at least for CAPC and general Windows approach, was to use cloud-based init so that we could reuse a lot of the infrastructure that was already out there in the cluster API ecosystem. So we wouldn't have to rewrite how to gather certs and manage certs, because KubeADM provider does all that for us. And so that was the initial approach. And I think the machine operator was fairly young at that point. I don't remember exactly coming across it when I was doing all the research, but I don't know if we've got those folks here, but so yeah, so that's kind of like where we chose that. It just we didn't want to be a snowflake. Windows is just because there's so few of us. If we had to maintain our own KubeADM type bootstrap provider, there's just not enough folks to do that type of thing. And so that's why we went that way. But I mean, now we've got this machine config operator. I don't know anything about it, but it's a potential option from like a CAPI perspective. I think how you bootstrap your node is left up to the provider to choose that option. And so I think it sounds like OpenShift uses the machine configure operator, and I don't think there's anything stopping any other provider from using something else as well.
Yeah, and I'm happy to talk about what we do with WMCO, the Windows Machine
awesome.
Config operator. If anyone has any questions, or I can demo some stuff if people want.
Yeah, can you demo it now?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
All right, let me stop sharing, and then I think anybody can share
Can
if
you
you
show
want
us?
to,
Yeah, can you show us for like 5 minutes, something?
with Jay putting everybody on the spot.
Yeah.
Jay,
Yes,
I would
yeah.
also like, what things are you running into that you want to go look at something else versus like,
I don't think it's bad for us to go with the immutable model. I'm just wondering whether we ever thought about what we should do for like the long term, like say 4 years from now. Are we still doing immutable machines, or do we want to consider looking at a mutable approach? Because there's these stories about folks kind of like starting out with things immutable and then eventually moving towards a mutable model once things go more, like Netflix did that recently. And like there's just, I'm okay with us going with this immutable image builder model forever. I just feel like it's worth having a conversation about it though.
yeah, definitely. And there's also, I think I saw on like the Kubernetes dev email chain about the new like kubeadm operator, which sounds like it might be immutable, but I think it's still really early phase. So that might be another option to plug in somehow.
Yeah, because kubeadm, we don't have native Windows yet, do we?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we use kubeadm to boot everything via this model. So
We do that, but not for like the proxy and stuff, right? It's like wasn't there a whole thing with the proxy that kubeadm doesn't set it up for us?
oh yeah, right. But
Like it's not at parity, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Does it set it up for Linux too?
yeah, it's one of the add-ons that gets deployed automatically via kubeadm when you do a join or init for the host. All right, sorry, Sebastian, go ahead.
Yeah, no
I guess
worries.
we'll just do a quick one because the meme's on the agenda, but tell us what you can tell us in like 5 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I'll just go over the quick like a workflow that our users go through, right? And we have like machine objects or machine set objects that they create that ends up turning into like Windows, that ends up creating Windows VMs. WMCO, which acts upon those Windows VMs, and so
Are those like a specific type that OpenShift exposes, or is that a CAPI object?
I think that, yeah, so I think there was originally like I think there became a divide between what OpenShift does with these objects and what is happening upstream with CAPI. I'm not 100% sure at this point, and if anyone else knows, we can chime in. There's a few other people from Red Hat here.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it corresponds either, but machine sets are kind of like node pools and AKS, just a bunch of machines that you can create with an API called the machine API. So be akin to node pools and AKS.
Yeah, so cluster API is different from the machine API that we use at Red Hat. So we have sort of diverged, and it is because of the immutability part. Like to some extent, it is because of the immutability part that Jay is bringing up. We do it differently in case of Windows. I do not know if that has changed. I'll let Sebastian answer that question. But as far as the machine objects go, they are pretty much different from the cluster API. So machine API used to be part of cluster API at some point of time, just to give everyone some history.
Yeah. And so I'll try to basically describe this from the point of just acting on a VM. And so because WMCO kind of just takes these machine objects and then gets the IP address of the VM, and users can also bring in, we call it bring your own host, BIOH, and you can give the IP and a username for us to log into with an SSH key that you provide. And then we also act upon that. So, we don't always users don't always have to create their VMs through our infrastructure or through the methods we provide. Yeah, so we're acting on a VM here, 10.0.144.168. We copy over these required files. And we're kind of in a transition point right now, but with the Windows Instance Config daemon, or WICD, WICD, that Arvind had brought up in Slack. A user is going to specify, or WMCO is creating this service, this Windows Services config map, which contains data about the Windows services that you want running on the VM. So we have like the Windows exporter to collect Prometheus metrics running on the VM. We're giving the arguments that it needs to run with. And WSID is just a Kubernetes controller. And right now it's running as a Windows service, but in the future we hope to run it as a host process container as that develops.
Did you say W at CD?
ICD, wicked.
Oh, W. Wait,
No.
where is it?
No,
Can you
I'm not
follow
going
it?
to overload W at CD.
I like that name though. Wicked.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you know, we also have another service, and with Wicked as a functionality of variable substitution, so you can plug in node name and then then specify how to get that variable. So we say that's the node object JSON path, and then it's a metadata.name, because certain Windows services, their arguments can be based upon variables from the nodes. We can also do that through PowerShell scripts. So run a PowerShell script as we're trying to figure out what arguments need to run for the service, and then based on the output of the PowerShell script, substitute that in.
So Wicked is like your cloud-based init for what we do. Right
Well,
now, we have cloud-based init. It goes in and it runs when the machine boots up. It's like Wicked takes the config map and injects it into a machine and runs whatever scripts it says.
Almost, because Wicked actually is a daemon, or it's a Windows service itself, so it's going to be running forever. And so let's say someone's changing the specification of the service config map, or they want to upgrade to a different one. Wicked will, it's plugged into the API. It's a Kubernetes controller. So if the service object, if the service config map, if the node object annotation changes, and the annotation is how we tell Wicked what config map to look at, it's going to go and change all the service specs according to the new config map that it should be using. And to make that kind of simpler to understand, maybe it's not simpler because this is all ASCII art I did this morning. So WMCO copies over the required files, and first it starts the bootstrap command for Wicked. And Wicked's running as a Windows service right now, but in the future could be a host process container. Its job is to start and maintain specified services, and the information of the services that it wants to run is specified by this Windows Services config map, which is versions.
Who puts Wicked on the Windows VM? That's
WMCO.
That's WMCO. Okay, so WMCO, and where does WMCO run?
WMCO right now, it runs on any pod in the cluster. It's just a pod running in the cluster.
Okay, so you have a pod that writes a service to a Windows node, and the service then talks to Kubernetes and figures out what the service needs to do.
Yeah. So WMCO
before the kubelet, or after the kubelet is, but the kubelet still needs to be installed on that Windows node, right?
Yeah. So that's the first thing. So right.
Yeah.
That's the bootstrap command, and the bootstrap command is going to be running any services in the config map that you specify as bootstrap. And so for us, that's going to be containerd and the kubelet.
Okay.
So once that bootstrap command runs, and then kubelet and containerd are running on the VM, and then a CSR is generated and WMCO approves it, then we can start running Wicked as a daemon.
So you don't use kubeadm to?
No, we don't.
Interesting.
Does the WMCO thing do all of the configuration, cert generation and all that to join the node?
No, so the cert generation is handled through other things in OpenShift. WMCO is copying over the bootstrap kubeconfig and the cert associated with that. and that's used to initially bootstrap the VM. Or sorry, that's used to initially start kubelet.
And so for like a kubelet upgrade or something, does WCMO start a new kubelet on the same node? Like immutable kind of, I'm sorry, immutable, the way that Jay's talking about.
Yeah, so WMCO is going to stop kubelet, copy over the new kubelet binary, and then, sorry, so WICD is going to be, so WMCO is going to be copying over the new one after WICD stops everything. That new kubelet is now going to be on the node, and then WICD will restart it. So yeah, so it's going to be stopped, copied over, the new version is going to be copied over and then restarted. And so yeah, everything is mutable for Windows.
I
So
want to
what did
do a
you-
time check also.
Sorry, yeah,
If
we can
that's
talk
okay.
about it. Yeah.
Sebastian, is this documentation available on? I see a link like to the docs.OpenShift is, or you've said you just made this ASCII art like today. Is this something you can make available?
The last 2 months. So it's still we're in a very transitionary phase. I'll link it in SIG-Windows once I hopefully have a little more information up like later today. So people can go through it and see if it fits, what people are looking for.
Yeah, I think that'd be super helpful. We can continue the conversation on Slack or at a future meeting.
This
Yeah,
is
so-
great. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Trying to squeeze a lot into a lot of little time.
Yeah, I wanted to give just even continue a couple minutes to do this too. But yeah, we can talk about that in the future. Thanks. Let's get the links added back into the agenda too. It looks like they are too.
I'll internally fight with the meme about this, and then we'll come back next week and ask you more stuff, Sebastian.
Sounds good.
Oh, I guess one other thing that we probably could have added to the announcements was that there is now a Kubernetes SIG repo for the Windows operational readiness work that got transferred ownership from, I think, repo that Jay set up, an org that Jay set up. So this is now an official, Kubernetes SIGs repository hooked up to Prow and everything. So if folks are interested, please take a look. Yeah. I think in Slack, Amin was asking what would it take to start running like the operational readiness stuff in a CI job. So I wanted to give a kind of a minute to show what we could do with CapZ, and there's probably a lot of different ways to do that, but I'm just the most familiar with how to run extra stuff with CapZ. So I think Nawaz, this is what you were interested in, and Amin and Shinchi, this could be some future work. So this is the test info repo. I'll link this here, and this is kind of an example job of how we run some other tests that live in another repository into or on a CapZ cluster. So this is kind of what the structure of the Prow jobs look like, and I don't think we have enough time to go into a lot of detail here, but we can go follow up in Slack. In the Prow jobs, you can specify one or more repositories to sync to the machine when it runs. And in this case, what we do is we sync the cluster, the CapZ repository, and we can sync other repositories. In this case, we're running the Azure Disk CSI driver test passes with it. And in the cluster API repository, so we set that as a workdir. So that's where like this will come from. We have this script CI entry point, and what this does is this uses environment variables that are all defined in these presets, which are defined at the top of the file. Yeah, kind of going to be going over this pretty quickly, and then you guys can ask some more information later. This CI entry point runs, and what this does is this sets up a CapZ cluster and eventually sets the kubeconfig to the context of that. Writes a kubeconfig for the context of that cluster, and then hands over execution to whatever whatever else you specify in these extra args for running it. So in this case, I believe that like this one is set up to run. Oops, where is that? just like a 2-machine cluster. And then after that, you can use, basically, you can execute like commands from the root of any other repository here. So in this case, this is the Azure Disk repository, which gets cloned to this path based on this. And then what this does is it just changes the directory to that repository and runs make E2E test. And then, so these tests are assuming that there's already like the cluster context for the remote cluster is already, set up, and then just runs those tests against that cluster. So it should be possible to set up something like this in this new Windows operational readiness repository to have some scripts or like a makefile that has a whole bunch of make targets to execute the tests against a cluster that's already set up.
Yeah, I think makes sense. Like what we are doing is to run everything on Sonoboy, but I think we can run without Sonoboy and like raw E2E test binary, so Pro can like parse and get the output directly. I'm not sure like how Pro will render the output and like check the results and things like that.
Yeah, it could be possible to have like a make target to run it the raw ED stuff, but also to run the Sonobui, like to bootstrap Sonobui and run Sonobui too. I think that would make sense to live in the Windows operational readiness.
I'd be surprised if we didn't already, because how does it run? Maybe it runs conformance directly, huh? Yeah, it probably runs the conformance tags directly. Maybe it doesn't use certified conformance.
Yeah, currently we can run that E2E binary directly. We have the make target like make build, if I remember that correctly, and we can like run that binary on the existing Kubernetes cluster.
Yeah, and if anybody's interested, usually what we do to set up these test jobs is set up a pull request job that we can trigger from different repositories. And you could specify, not in here, there's some other files. Windows, no, that's the unit pre-submits. I need to drop for SIG-Node in a minute, so I'm gonna rush and then we can follow up in Slack. But we can set up a pull request job that you can trigger via the GitHub like comments in the Windows operational readiness repository. And then so you can make a dummy PR into that repository and trigger the unit of the PR job until everything is set up and running. And then after that's set up, if there were any code changes, we can get those merged and then set up periodic jobs to run this too.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think we need like to review this, and we will need your help to set up these things on to integrate with our repository, but is it good?
Yeah, I think moving up the Windows operational readiness stuff into the Kubernetes SIG repository will just unlock a lot of this potential here, because we can now, just set up some test jobs and have Prow manage those and then use those to iterate on all of the actual shape of the test job.
The other thing that might be cool is if you have, if you're running these against your VMware clusters or the Tanzu clusters, whatever you're running them against, you can upload the results into Prow, and we can potentially get it onto the like SIG-Windows dashboard as well as like another, instead of just CapZ being the folks that are publishing results, you could publish the results too. You don't necessarily have to run it inside the Prow infra. We do that for a few other jobs as well. And so I think we could, that would be another option as well too.
But like Pro needs to, you just need access to Pro to upload these files. Like you don't need to host something.
Yeah, there's a little bit of config that you put into the Prow config, and then it creates GC buckets for you, and then you can upload the artifacts in a certain format, and it'll show up in the Prow dashboards. We do this for the networking tests and the container D tests as well.
Yeah, both are valid options. I need to drop.
I'm
Jay,
filing
I'm
I
gonna
filed
make
an
you lead or meeting host.
Yeah, I filed an
I can
issue
follow.
in test infra for this. Just to track it. Thanks for bringing this up, Mark.
Yeah, no,
Thanks,
well,
man.
I think brought it up in Slack. I just added it to the agenda to
Oh,
make sure we talk about
Okay,
it.
I rescind my thank you to you. And then I repurpose it for a me. Okay. Cool. Anything else, folks?
I made a PR with add Windows node guide. If you can look it up.
Cool. I'll add that to notes. You made a PR. What's the PR, Fabian?
One moment. Um, 236.
Okay. Kubernetes docs,
No, SIG-Windows tools.
SIG-Windows tools. Yeah. Okay.
It's based on the website. I mean, the page that was taken down. And change it to be a little okay. But I'm still facing some issues with it. It creates it, but the flannel doesn't create pods. The flannel CNI with Rancher.
Okay.
I think James U has an issue on this. I found something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think the flannel pod that we post there has very specific requirements and like where everything laid out. And if you follow the guide exactly, then there's a little bit of difference. I do have a PR that I like got it all working together. I can post it to you in Slack so that you maybe it'll help.
Yeah, thank you very much. But for a beginner, I think it's pretty good now that you can merge a Windows node to the cluster. And I'm trying to work on the Calico and Flannel host process as well.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for working on this. It's something that needed to get done. Really appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks, Fabian. I have an update. I'm in the middle of a big rebase with the Windows kernel space for KPNG. And as soon as the rebase is done, we're going to try to merge it, and we're filing some follow-on issues. And I think the follow-on issues will be more approachable for new people that are interested in some of the Windows kubeproxy stuff, because all the track will be laid out as far as integrating it with KPNG. So David Schott was on earlier, but I think he dropped. But I'll reach out to the Microsoft networking folks about that when it's ready. I'm just talking to Dimitri now about it. I'm going to drop. I got some other stuff to do. Thanks, folks.
Cool. All right. See everyone next week.
See ya.